Opportunities Forum 2024. Celebrating 25 years in business and 100th edition of In Diplomacy. Session 1, Investment Opportunities in India and ASEAN. World Opportunities Forum, invest in a better tomorrow, today.
Welcome to our first panel, Unlocking Investment Opportunities in
Sun
India
Media presents
and
World
ASEAN.
Opportunities Forum 2024.
We have an esteemed group of experts joining us today,
Celebrating
representing
25
India,
years in business
Indonesia,
and 100th edition
Malaysia,
of In Diplomacy.
Singapore, and Thailand. Moderated by Mr.
Session
Vikram
1,
Khanna,
Investment
Associate
Opportunities
Editor
in India
at the
and
Straits
ASEAN.
Times. Prior to joining Singapore Press
Opportunities
Holdings in
Forum. Invest in a better
1993,
tomorrow,
he served
today.
as an economist at the International Monetary Fund in Washington, D.C. Our panel will share their insights on the
Sun
latest
Media presents World
investment
Opportunities
trends,
Forum
sustainable
2024.
practices, and collaborative initiatives driving growth in these vibrant regions. Let's dive into the discussion and explore the exciting possibilities of India-ASEAN collaboration. First up, we have His Excellency Dr. Shilpak Ambule, High Commissioner of India to Singapore. His Excellency joined the Indian Foreign Service in 2002 and then served at headquarters as the Deputy Head of the East Asia Division and as the Chief of Staff of the Indian Foreign Secretary. He took over as Joint Secretary for East Asia in June 2022 and is currently serving as High Commissioner to Singapore since 23rd July 2023. We welcome High Commissioner to share his insights on investment opportunities in India. Let us continue. Thank you, High Commissioner. Next, we will be hearing insights from His Excellency Suryo Pratomo, Ambassador of Indonesia in Singapore. The Ambassador began his profession as a journalist for Indonesian newspaper Kompas in 1987. He held several key positions in Kompas over the years before joining Media Group and has been on its board of editors. Ambassador has presented his credentials to then President Halimah Yacob at the Istana on 24th November 2020. We welcome Ambassador to share his insights on investing in Indonesia. Now, we will have His Excellency Azfar Mohamad Mustafar, High Commissioner of Malaysia to Singapore, to share his insights on investments in Malaysia. His Excellency Dato Azfar joined the Malaysian Civil Service in 1996, and his past assignments include serving as the Ambassador of Malaysia to France, with concurrent accreditation to Monaco and Portugal. We invite High Commissioner to share more of his insights on investing in Malaysia. Next, we will have His Excellency Keng, Ambassador-at-Large at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Singapore and Executive Deputy Chairman of the RSIS, Director of the Institute of Defense and Strategic Studies. His Excellency served as Secretary General of ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, based in Jakarta, Indonesia, for 5 years from January 2003, aside from various diplomatic assignments with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Singapore. We invite His Excellency to share his views and insights on sustainable developments and investments in Singapore and ASEAN. Now, we invite Dr. Chula Sukmanop, Secretary General of Thailand's Eastern Economic Corridor Office, EECO. Deriving from his distinctive legal background and remarkable experience in directing government agencies in top executive positions over decades, he is leading the EECO in uplifting Thailand's competitiveness in regional, national, and global arenas. Dr. Chula will share more about how the Eastern Economic Corridor is an exceptional location for good value investment and sustainable living. Thank you. I am also to introduce Mr. Vikram Khanna as our moderator for this panel. Yay. Ladies and gentlemen.
No, yes, yes, okay. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the first panel. You know, Southeast Asia is one of the regions that is most affected by climate change. India is also very vulnerable to this, and I think we've seen this in repeated natural disasters throughout these two regions, as well as heat with rising temperatures. And we feel this even in Singapore, where somebody said that there are 3 seasons, hot, hotter, and hottest. So now this is very appropriate that we have a session focused on sustainability issues in the region. And as the Master of Ceremonies pointed out, we have a very distinguished panel to address these issues. Basically, all the ambassadors of these countries. Now, the routine will be as follows. I think each panelist will speak for about 5 to 7 minutes. After that, we go into Q&A. Now, I will ask one question to each of the panelists to begin with, but there is so much diplomatic power and brain power in this room that I would be remiss to not ask for questions from the floor. Failing which, I can go on, but I'd really rather that the audience also chips in with questions of their own. So without further ado, may we start with Dr. Ambule to begin the proceedings with this speech. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I'll just begin with what's happening in India right now. We've gone through a longish general election. The same government is back. The same prime minister is back. It's quite unprecedented that in recent years, a prime minister has been elected for a 3rd consecutive time. And that is not without reason. For the last 10 years, a lot of development work has happened in India. Whatever policies were formulated in Delhi, the last mile delivery actually happened down to the villages. And this is both in terms of infrastructure development, be it roads, railways, ports, airports. We have in fact doubled the number of airports in India from 74 to 148 in the last 10 years, and it is even growing further. We've built what we call as dedicated freight corridors for railways to kind of facilitate trade. There is one on the eastern side, one on the western side. More are in the pipeline, which was announced in this budget. In terms of aircrafts, our airlines have placed orders about 1,200 aircrafts in the next 10 to 15 years. So that is a growing market. People's income has doubled in the last 10 years. So you see people moving into the cities, big urbanization taking place. People have become more aspirational, more confident, and are spending even more, especially post-COVID. This is where generally the mindset of people is. But if you talk about what has changed for the poor people or the rural people, somewhere in 2016, Prime Minister said that we will open bank accounts for everybody, even if it's a zero bank balance account. So we opened about 550 million accounts. And 70% of these accounts were of poor women. And then once we started transferring subsidy in that account, I mean, we linked that account to a mobile number, and that mobile number was linked to what we in our country call as Aadhaar. It's a unique identity identification number. So what they did was it did away with all the leakage. Say 2,000 rupees transferred from New Delhi to a person's account in somewhere down south in Kerala. The entire 2,000 rupees went into the bank account. So the rural women felt more empowered because they had a mobile. They got a SMS message saying that 2,000 rupees are deposited in your account. So that was a big change which happened. And even today, I mean, most of these accounts have balance and the women actually feel more empowered. This is what we called as the Trinity, which was, we call these accounts Jan-Dhan accounts, Aadhaar and mobile. And it was quite useful when, after COVID, when we started saying that people should not go hungry and we need to transfer money into their accounts. I mean, we transferred all money without leakage. If you see the budget which was presented in late July, I mean, we've identified 4 areas of focus now where energies need to be kind of synchronized. One is, of course, to lift more people out of poverty. There are different, I mean, people give different statistics, but in the last 8 years, more than 250 million people have come out of multidimensional poverty, and more is being done to increase their income. There is a lot of focus on youth. People say that we have only a window of 23 years for to reap the demographic dividend. So we have given ourselves a target of 2047 by which we want to become a developed country. We say it's called Viksit Bharat. And there's a lot of focus on agriculture. This budget, there's been a focus, I mean, a lot of energies are going to be devoted to get technology into agriculture. And we have also introduced women trained in drone technology to use in agriculture. We call them, in the Indian terminology, we call them millionaire didis. They basically go and do a soil survey or help kind of put fertilizers in the field with the help of drones, which empowers them and which also gives them employment. So having said that, the focus is also on renewable energy and green growth. We've given ourselves a target of 2030 by which we want 50% of our energy to be from non-fossil fuels resources. A lot of work is being done in solar and wind energy on that front. Also in terms of pump storage, we've actively identified a lot of areas where the issue of solar not being viable at night gets resolved. And 2 more sectors where we are focusing on is, one is of course advanced manufacturing. As was mentioned earlier, I think Indonesia and Malaysia, Singapore here are actually pioneers in advanced manufacturing, and the whole semiconductor supply chain is located here. We are also getting into that sector and we are seeking active collaboration with countries and the region here. And so we are very hopeful that in the next 20-25 years, we, on this path of 8 to 10% growth, if we can continue, we will kind of realize our goal of becoming developed by 2047. Thank you.
Pak Pratomo, would you go ahead, please?
Thank you, Pak Vikram. Good morning to all of you. First of all, I want to appreciate the diplomatic corps in Singapore, especially to Dean, to SMF and also Sun Media. I think this is very excellent event. Why? Because almost every day, we only consume a gloomy information that we are in the middle of geopolitics, tension, geoeconomics, war in many places. But I think our life is not only need the gloomy one, but it is the bright side of our life, the opportunity. So that's why I think it's very important. If we are talking about Indonesia, I think Indonesia is almost similar with Singapore, Pak Vikram. Why? 2024, we just not only celebrate our Independence Day, but also we have a new leaders. Singapore have a new leaders, Indonesia will be also a new leaders. On 20th of October, the new president will be inaugurated. And the new president will be continuing the policy of the President Joko Widodo. And President-elect Prabowo have already put at least 3 issues that will be more give attention. The first one related with the first one, people, that Indonesia, our strength actually in agriculture and energy. Unfortunately, in agriculture, we still have much imported food from many countries. This year, for example, that we must imported around 2 million tons of rice. So that's why agriculture in one sector will be given attention by the President-elect Prabowo. And he has already preparing to open a new rice estate in Papua, in Kalimantan, and Sumatra. Total maybe will be open around 2 million hectares of rice estate. And the second one is in the energy. Indonesia is a very huge potential of the renewable energy. Our potential for geothermal is 72 gigawatt. Until now, we just only less than 10% of our geothermal have already explored. The second one is for hydro. The third one is about the solar. So that's why renewable energy will be part of the program of the President-elect Prabowo. We are now preparing to retire our coal power plant. And next year, we are starting, and 2030, we'll be starting to shut down the first phase of our coal power plant and be replacing by solar, geothermal, and also from hydro. Until 2060, it will be contribute to net zero emission. This is the long plan of in energy sectors. And also the third one, we would contribute to the world how to utilize our natural resources for especially develop and to support the renewable energy. I think all of this room have aware Indonesia have at least 50% of nickel. The President Joko Widodo have already decided that we will be downstreaming our industry. So industrialization related with the new energy will be one of the other program that will develop by President-elect Pak Prabowo Subianto. So people, planet, and prosperity, it will become the third issue that will be related with the development that Indonesia will do in the next future. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you, Pak Pratomo, and I'm especially delighted that you are a former journalist yourself. So, really welcome. Okay, now, Dato Dr. Azfar, please go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you, Vikram. Let me begin by congratulating Sun Media on becoming 25 years old and also for organizing this event. I think it's timely, as Vikram said, we are at the crossroad. Conversation on climate change has become more prominent, and as Vikram also said, Southeast Asia is at the forefront of this issue. So Malaysia wants to become a high-income nation with low carbon economy by 2050. So in order to do so, government has launched a few policies to set a clear path and also to guide private sector who are willing to take part on this initiative. Last year, government launched what we call National Energy Transition Roadmap, which talk about green energy and so on and so forth. Government also, similar to Singapore, we launched what we call New Industrial Master Plan 2030. In addition to that, government have also recently launched what we call Green Investment Strategy, GIS. All these policies are launched to provide a clear directions or clear strategy for investment, for private sector, for investors to capitalize on what we want to do in achieving our net zero target by 2050. Let me also say that we have a few companies that are embarking on this initiative. We have our oil company, Petronas, embarking on renewable energy and so on and so forth. So the policy are there to guide investors and so on and so forth. So by doing so, we will hope that by next year, when we assume chairmanship of ASEAN, we would like to pursue some of the initiative under the ASEAN umbrella. By doing so, we hope South Asia could be a region to be looked upon when we talk about climate change and how to mitigate these issues. Thank you, Vikram.
Thank you, Dr. Azfar. Ambassador Yong, yeah, please go ahead.
First of all, thank you, Vikram, and thank you for having me here, the organizer, Sun Media. I am actually quite delighted that I don't have to say very much since Mr. Lennon Tan has described all the things that I wanted to say about ASEAN. Yeah. My role here, as presented to me by Novita is that talk about ASEAN and India in this period of opportunities for growth and development. ASEAN has been covered very well by Mr. Lennon Tan. All that I want to add is that, yeah, we are still going through the ASEAN Economic Community Blueprint. The first blueprint is coming to an end soon, end of 2025, but we have already started work on the next ASEAN Economic Community Blueprint from 2026 to 2035. It's a 10-year program, and each of the important sector under the economic domain will be having their own respective action plan and implementation initiatives so that they can comply with whatever the vision under the ASEAN Economic Community as approved by the ASEAN leaders in their earlier meeting. Every 10 years, we hope to do a review of our economic vision as part of the ASEAN community building vision. And usually, we would try to add on to the next 10 years of work based on the accomplishment of the preceding 10 years. So right now, the reports from the various sectors in the economic community blueprint have been that, well, there is not a lot of excitement among business people or even diplomatic colleagues here today. The reality is that we actually have done some work on the ground, and implementation of the various actions under the current blueprint, ASEAN Economic Community Blueprint 2025. It started in 2015. Things have been going on. We don't see very much of it because now these are the things that you are not interested in. How do we synchronize our 10 countries' different rules and regulations, and how do we implement some of the ideas that the ASEAN leaders have approved? These are the regulatory framework, taking care of developments like AI and other technological improvement, and also looking down to the level of providing trade facilitation measures, financial integration measures, and all those other related stuff involved in building all the 10 ASEAN economy. Very soon will be 11 because Timor-Leste is going to be part of ASEAN sooner than later. So unless you are directly involved in the business side, you don't pay attention to all these little things that are actually being implemented on the ground by our companies, by our government agencies, and our development cooperation, like what you're going to hear from our colleagues from Thailand. There are many such specific sub-regional or very localized initiative to develop certain part of ASEAN, either at the national level or in joint venture with neighboring countries. So the implementation part of the ASEAN Economic Community is not something many people read about every day, and even if they do read, they may not have the full picture. It's a very specific national base or localized situation, and very often the little complaints that each of the businesses or manufacturer face will be magnified because they think that their problem is the only problem that the government of the day has not solved. The fact of the matter is that everything that we do under the economic blueprint for the ASEAN Economic Community must be part of the action plan for the whole region. Right now we have 10 countries. Soon we will have 11 countries. So what one country does must be in tandem with the approved plan so that it connect and coordinate with the rest of the region. So if you look at this, it's a very tedious bureaucratic process, but the good thing is that I believe ASEAN has got all the basic key challenges and initiative already recognized, mapped out. Now is very tedious country by country implementation or sector by sector implementation of the plan. So you don't read about this very much, neither will you be very interested on a day-to-day basis, but the fact is that due to the early work done by ASEAN countries with regard to trade facilitation, for example, free trade agreement and removing trade barriers and all that, our trade facilitation activities on the ground are actually very well in place. In some countries, the implementation has been faster and more effective than other countries. Yeah, if you talk about Singapore, it's just one city, it's not difficult to implement, and any company or any sector not complying with what has been approved can be seen or can be found out easily. But if you have a big country like the Philippines or Indonesia, it takes time. Yeah. But the point here is that the culture of implementing and the feeling that you can get good result from moving the ASEAN Economic Community Plan into fruition has been positive. People are coming into it. And by the nature of business, each individual company will have certain particular problem, and which the planners of the integration plan might not have addressed fully. So these are little things that's happening. But what is very good news is that in terms of financial integration, in terms of our growth prospects going forward, the assessment has been very good, positive. What we are now trying to do is to prepare ourselves for the next level, which you have heard from some of our other colleagues. While we are doing integration of the economies, we also have to think about our national sustainability plan, our circular economy plan, our all kind of things related to the protection of the environment as well as our consumer interests going forward. And one of the big things here would be energy. Yeah, so the future of coal is debated. Then at the same time, we also talk about water. We eat rice as though we have no worries about whether there will be continuous supply of rice. The fact of the matter is that rice consumes a lot of water. Yeah, and at the rate we are going, it's not sustainable. So how? We have to do more research. We have to go and make sure that all the rivers continue to provide the water. In the case of Singapore, we don't have to worry whether there is rain or no rain anymore, because whatever we use in our home, the water is recycled. So this is one city that really don't depend on the rain per se anymore. Yeah, what we need in terms of water is recycle. But growing rice is not like that. How to recycle rice water, or how to go forward, making sure that all the oil fields have been, all the rice fields have been provided for in terms of water supply. So this is the thing that we need to look at. But even as we do so, there are many opportunities. And what is important is that now we look at India and China, because these are two big economy, big opportunities, and we find that India is very actively involved in developing their own economic visions and plan going forward. So the question is, how do we ride on each other's advantages? India's technological development is very significant. Yeah, as we hear just now about AI, yeah, this is an area that we can work more closely together. Of course, there are bureaucratic problems, there are geographical problems, there are political problems. But the important thing is that the ASEAN culture, after more than 50 years of working together, is that we always have a plan. And then we have a assessment, certain stages of the plan. How has it been implemented? If it's not well implemented, how can we do better? And then we improve the plan. So if we have this kind of approach, I think it will be enabling us to capitalize on all the opportunities that we are seeing today in the ASEAN region. The economy of ASEAN is in fact very good and high growth potential going forward. So how do we now connect with India as it embark on its own economic expansion and future? So if we can continue to find a way to work together, there will be definitely mutual benefit. Thank you very much. Vikram.
Thank you, Dr. Rong. After listening to you, I've decided I'm going to eat less rice.
Like what I do now.
Okay, very good. Dr. Chula, if you talk about the challenges and opportunities facing Thailand. Sorry. Okay. Sure.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I have some slides, some presentation to. So instead of looking at my face, you can look at my presentation. It's more worthwhile doing than just for my speaking. So what I'm going to talk to you today is about the investment in Thailand. But in Thailand, we now focusing on special economic zones. In Thailand, some of you may have heard on investment in Thailand, but recently we have an idea of doing special economic zones called Eastern Economic Corridor, where we focus on 3 provinces in Thailand. In Thailand we have 27 provinces, but the last government did designate 3 provinces to be special economic zones. The size of itself is about the same as in Singapore right now. So we're talking about the opportunity, and because of today, we're talking about another word apart from opportunity is sustainability. Is exactly what we are doing at the EEC, because the law that give rise to our office mentioned this, okay, about the future investment based on the sustainability of the people of the whole country, also the global sustainability. So this is Thailand, okay? DEC is in the part of Thailand where, if some of you know Pattaya, it's in the eastern side of Bangkok. If you fly to Sukmanop airport, you turn left to Chonburi to Pattaya, so it's right there. It's about an hour from Bangkok. So basically, we try to turn industry in Thailand from 2.0 to 3.0 to 4.0. Now, Renan has just mentioned now we're talking 5.0 already. So the last 6 years, things changed very rapidly. So because we try to attract foreign direct investment, because in Thailand you may have heard that we rely on export, on tourism. But the hidden thing that we help growing people, growing the country, investors. Investment in the country, we receive big proportion of the GDP of the country from the investment, foreign direct investment. So basically in the EC, we just focus on these only 5 clusters. So if you come to Thailand to invest in Thailand, apart from this, you may have to go to the traditional board of investment package. So in the EC, we can offer you the tailor-made package, project by project based incentive. We discuss with you and decide you the incentive that if you bring a lot of good things into Thailand, then you get a better incentive, something like that. So we focus on medical, okay, digital technology, EV, okay, EV not just only the cars but also trucks, some boats, some aircraft. Apart from that, will be on the green economies, the environment, the green industry, and the final one is the service industry. So basically, altogether, it's about 12 industries. So you have to come within these 12 industries in order to get the incentive from the EC. We have a special law give rise to incentive. And as I mentioned, it's a project-based incentive. So you have to come and talk to us. So apart from the package, so the EC trying to provide some land, some labor force, some logistic infrastructures and law and regulation to make sure that you come and spend money in Thailand, set up the factory in Thailand faster than before. So these are the areas that we dedicate, that if you decide to come to the EC, come to Thailand, we have special area where you can get the maximum incentive if you locate your factory or your place of business in the area. So we're trying to make sure that the land use of the industry can go along with the whole details. So it's a part of the sustainability thing where we want to make sure that the local people and the new industry that we are bringing into the country can live together. Because apart from the industrial side itself, our task is going to make sure that the local people can get along and can live together with the industry. That's why we are focusing only that 5 clusters I mentioned. Let's say for the medical, now we are in an aging society. That's why we get a lot of attraction on the investment on medical related industry. So if you come to us, okay, basically like this day, like I'm doing here, I use this opportunity to solicit, to let your ambassador knows that what we are doing. But sometimes we get a request, somebody come to Thailand to our office to talk, and some even submit some letter of intent. They intend to invest in EEC, or some ask us to sign the non-disclosure agreement because we're doing project by project. If you invest, let's say for the EV cars, we have some like EV cars from China, from Korea, from Germany, coming to discuss with us. Even though they are in the same industry, they won't get the same package of incentive. It depends on what kind of technology or what they bring to Thailand. Some we're doing some kind of scoring like this, okay? So, we have some kind of criteria. In order to get a better incentive, you have to make sure that your way of doing business fall within those categories. The more you get, the more you meet of the criteria, the better incentive that you're going to get from the package. So we look at the whole strategic point to make sure that Thailand can live longer with investment. Look at the economics and environment and the social. So we keep some scoring for the investor who come and take care of the local people too. So it's a shape of some kind of the whole package of investment and the whole package of incentive. Okay, so these are the example of incentive that we're going to get. We can offer the incentive. Easy, I can sign the visa. Okay, the visa, the work permit, instead of running around to many departments. Or if you want to set up the factory, I can issue altogether like 14 permits. And instead of going to about more than 10 agencies, you just come to us as a part of one-stop service. So these are the whole idea of the EC. In case that you want to learn more from the EC, make sure that you follow and you scan this QR code, and you can go further, explore what you can do with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chula, for filling us in on what your organization is doing to invite investment into Thailand. I have to say, this is the first time I've heard about EEC, so it's quite interesting. So it's question time. So let me start with Dr. Ambule. Dr. Ambule, you mentioned the progress on development over the last 10 years in India. And you also mentioned the growing investments in renewable energies. But at the same time, India is investing quite a lot in coal. And indeed, coal still provides about 70–75% of India's energy needs. So what is the government doing to accelerate the shift in demand away from coal into more renewables? And what are the constraints that it faces?
Well, the biggest constraint is India is a large country. I mean, and we've embarked on the development path relatively later than most of the Western countries. But having said that, somewhere in 2014, we did not stick to the kind of position we had traditionally, and we did shift a lot to renewable energy. And even our commitments in the 2015 COP Paris Agreement, at COP recently in Dubai. And whatever objectives we have set for renewable energy, we have achieved them ahead of the kind of set dates. Even if you see the performance of the G20 countries in terms of climate change and objectives achieved, we've been quite ahead of that. We've set a very ambitious target of having 500 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030, and we are on the course to achieve that. I mean, the general sense of sustainability and climate change and environment friendliness, we are trying to inculcate in the population. So Prime Minister Modi came up with something called Mission Life, where each and every person is kind of encouraged to have more environment-friendly habits. And this Mission Life was incorporated in the G20 document last year. Also, we are trying to get in a lot of people participate in the renewable energy sector. Prime Minister has come out with a very ambitious plan of having 10 million households have rooftop solar schemes installed on their houses. So it neutralizes your electricity bill, and whatever excess electricity you can generate, you can sell it on the grid. So in the next 2 or 3 years, I think this plan will be rolled out. So encourage more people to have rooftop solar installed on their households, and then try and on the coal part, yes, we are trying to shift to clean coal. We are trying to see how we can reduce the dependence on coal. But I mean, I'm not going to be unrealistic here. It's going to take time. And for that time, we have set a target of net zero by 2070. And it's not as if we have not set a target. And efforts are on in that process.
Thanks. I really hope that India succeeds in its ambitions to make the energy transition, because it'll make not only a difference to India itself, but also globally, because India is the third largest emitter of CO2 in the world. So yeah, all the best to the government on that. Pratomo, you mentioned the enormous potential for renewable energies, various types of renewable energies in Indonesia, which is very encouraging. But Indonesia also has very generous fossil fuel subsidies, which is about $12 billion last year. So while it is making this shift to the renewables, is it also planning to roll back some of these fossil fuel subsidies, which basically encourage the consumption of dirty energy? And is it trying to use those savings to either invest more in renewable energy or do something good with the savings?
Thank you, Pak Vikram. The most challenges for every government in Indonesia, that in our constitution, so by constitution, the state must provide affordable price for the energy. So that's why government cannot be escaped to put some subsidies from electricity and for the gasoline. And the number is increasing. At the moment, the government have already put the policy that for the low income community, they could be buy the more cheaper gasoline with run less than 90. But for the more highest earning that we categorize with the people who own more luxurious car, that not allowed to buy the subsidies gasoline. So now in Indonesia, since yesterday, that the price of the non-subsidies is increasing, but the government is still keep the price for the lower income community. This is once again, this is very challenging because our budget is very limited. So that's why, in the other hand, we have a commitment, our national determined commitment to contribute for the net zero emission by 2060. So that's why the government have already made a very long-term planning. We are, once again, is trying to prepare retirement of the coal. And Pak Vikram, do you know how much money that we must prepare for transition for our energy until 2040? $3.2 trillion. So that's why it's very huge. So that's why we are step by step until in 2030 we will be start to shut down our first coal power plant and replacing with the renewable energy. Until next year, hopefully 23% of our need for the energy is coming from the renewable energy mix. Until 2030, it will be 42%. And after that, we will be increasing. Once again, the challenges is our limitation of our budget. So that's why this is very long term. but we cannot be escaped because we have a commitment to the world that Indonesia will be part of countries will be decreasing the number of the zero emission. So we plan 2060 Indonesia will have zero net emission.
Thank you, Pratomo. I think you've set out very well the political challenges as well as the ambitions and how you have to balance the two. Yeah. Very good. Dato, Dr. Azfar. Malaysia is a major oil and gas producing country. Now, is that a disadvantage to decarbonizing the economy? Because I think, you know, if you, for example, if you have a carbon tax, which I believe you will have at some point, that will basically raise costs because you're still heavily dependent on fossil fuel consumption. So what's your answer? I mean, as an oil and gas economy, how do you decarbonize?
Thank you, Vikram. As you already pointed out, we are quite dependent on petroleum products for government coffers. So it's quite difficult to just shut down the industries and go green. So you mentioned about carbon tax. I think carbon tax is just one of the tools that government can employ to reach net zero. As I mentioned earlier, we have a firm commitment to be net zero by 2050. At the same time, we want to be high income nation with a low carbon economy. What we are doing now, as probably you are all aware, government have started to reduce, as similar to Indonesia, to eliminate subsidies. So what we have done is to eliminate diesel subsidies. So this has to be done in stages because to look into the overall effect to the economies. So we have started with the diesel, but of course with some exceptions, some industry continue to be given subsidies to allow them to transition. We have also not, do the rationalization to Sabah and Sarawak. It have to come in stages. I think the big challenges will be on removing subsidies for petrol because it will affect a lot of consumers. But as I mentioned, carbon tax is one of the two that we are looking at. But there are also other incentives that we are looking at as well. One is, as I mentioned, under our national energy roadmap, we have a few incentives, a few sectors that we are targeting to ensure that we're going to achieve what we want to achieve by 2050. It's a long journey, difficult journey, but I think all of us has to do this so that we can leave a greener future to our future generation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Azfar. I think if you do remove the subsidies, even I think a lot of Singaporean motorists will also be unhappy. Okay. Ambassador Yong, I think you mentioned a lot about ASEAN and what ASEAN is doing, and you're an expert on the topic, having been Secretary General. But can I just ask you, how can Singapore serve as a hub for sustainability for the region?
The thinking in government is that we can be a place where people can utilize what is already in Singapore in terms of servicing some of these ideas and trying out some of the necessary legislation and related activities for implementation. So, yeah, some people call us trying to test case some of these ideas. Some people feel that we can use our established services sector to try to organize a regional plan and implementation of some of these ideas. But at the end of the day, all these, as you have heard from Indonesia and Malaysia, they rest on their national policy and approach. So next thing that we can do is, all right, if this is what the Indonesian authority or the Malaysian authority would like to do for their respective concerns over environment or sustainable future, how can Singapore survey such kind of process? How do we make business easier to adjust to all these new plans and new priorities in energy transition or whatever? So the focus is a lot on servicing, providing the necessary expertise, and more importantly, we don't like to say this because people think that we are proud of our quality in this respect. We showcase what is possible, and then maybe from there we encourage the potential investors and others to work with their respective Indonesian or Malaysian partners to do certain things. So all this means that we have to do a lot of thinking. What makes business sense to us may not necessarily make political sense. So many times, good business opportunity in Singapore have been passed over because we don't want to stir up political misunderstanding or other kind of agitation. So what we do is that we try to look at the world market, see whether any good ideas, and then we can showcase some of these, work with the ASEAN existing mechanism to ascertain whether some of these things can be applied across our ASEAN membership. But more importantly, because we are an urban city, so we hope that our own policy here in Singapore for the well-being of our citizens in the city can also provide some useful guidelines and, in the worst case scenario, some lesson to be avoided. Some difficulty to be avoided, so lesson to be learned. So we have to be efficient in this respect. We have to be up to date. All the new ideas can be applied in our region. So that's, I think, a fundamental approach. But in the recent years, the last 5-10 years, I think most of us in policy-related research or activities also have to think about how can we work with other ASEAN member states, especially our immediate neighbors, namely Indonesia and Malaysia. So this is a good thing in the sense that it helped to build another layer of interstate cooperation, coexistence, which will actually add to the ASEAN's solidarity and ASEAN vision plan for a community.
Thank you. I've always thought that Singapore can be a role model for at least many urban solutions to sustainable issues. Like you mentioned, the high proportion of recycling of water, for example, in Singapore, which is quite unique, I think, and could be probably emulated by at least some other cities in ASEAN. I don't know.
But we must bear in mind, Singapore is only one city, one island like this. Indonesia has thousands of islands and thousands of cities. So, it's not apple to apple. But the idea here is that we want to demonstrate that it is possible to do something differently. And overall, it's not just practicality or economic or business. It's actually what we emphasize a lot in Singapore, which is strategic. Strategic means sometimes you have inconveniences in terms of economic, social, cultural conditions and what have you. But at the end of the day, if we can implement it the way our designer have envisaged, then there will be tremendous amount of benefit. And hopefully, if a small country or city-state like Singapore can take this risk, a big country like Indonesia or Malaysia around us can afford to do more. And hopefully, we add to the ASEAN momentum. So we don't do our talk about ASEAN and all this as a slogan. We actually believe in it. So it's not like, sometimes public relation people come and tell us, for this year, our theme is like that. Our message is like that. Next year, Taylor Swift may not be so important anymore. We think of a new singer, and then we change our theme, our message. No. Our planning in terms of strategic direction, strategic goals are very specific, and it's not a change of weather or a change of leadership or whoever the minister in charge. So hopefully this thing works in our work day to day with Malaysia and Indonesian counterparts. It is always a challenge to explain what you see is not what you get. Yeah, things like that. Anyway, it's good to look at all these opportunities and make use of it and work with our colleagues in neighboring countries. In the case of Singapore, you just have to walk across and then it's another country already, right? So, yeah, maybe we should encourage more walking rather than driving across borders. At least to Malaysia, we can do more walking. Healthy, energy-free, maybe we can even have custom clearance and passport clearance all the way from Causeway to center of Johor Bahru, so that you don't have to have long queue. Maybe one day we can do that.
Thank you. Yeah, good idea. Okay, this has to be, I'm afraid, the last question. I had an organizer come twice and whisper into my ear that I need to wrap up. So I'm afraid this is the last question. I'm really sorry that I'm not able to give the audience the opportunity to ask questions. So I'll pitch my last question to Dr. Chula. Dr. Chula, your organization recently organized a seminar. And the question asked in the seminar was, is Thai industry ready to enter carbon neutrality? So what is the answer that came out?
We have to be ready because, let's say for the EC, 80% of the products in the EC are exported. So we use only about 20% of the products in Thailand. So if we are not ready, the investor will go away. So now we are in the age of decarbonization, transformation. It's more than energy, because it's part of the daily life there. Even the households, even in the EC or in Thailand, even in the agricultural sector, they have to learn how to become decarbonized on that one too. So for me, it's just we have to be ready. We are not 100% ready. We are about to have to change. It's going to be a big change. And for the EEC, we are doing like Singapore. If you compare Singapore to for ASEAN, you can learn from Singapore through ASEAN, okay, toward ASEAN. But in Thailand, we are going to do it for Thailand. We are going to provide some lessons what to do or what not to do. We're going to get a very painful lesson from the EC where we're trying to do things. But because we are not just only doing some kind of investment promotion, but we are doing the whole administration relating to sustainable development. So it's going to be tough, but I think many we can signify some lessons, some example, what not to do right now. So it's, for me, what not to do is much better than what to do.
Okay. Very good. So on that hopeful note, I'm afraid I have to bring this panel to a close, but not before we thank our panelists for a very stimulating session. Thank you all.
Thank you, gentlemen, for these remarkable insights. And I ask you that you move to the center of the stage in order to receive a token of appreciation by Mr. Suryo and Ms. Nomita, and also for a brief photo. Thank you.